How's it going, internet? This week I wanted to look at the Dbiz modules. I have looked at them a little bit before, but I wanted to take a bit of a deeper dive into them. So let's go over to VCV and check it out. Okay, so here we are in VCV. I have this little synth that I've just built using the Tros oscillator from Dbiz, and it has 3 oscillators, which makes me think of the Mini Moog or Mini Moog. And so I've used these synthesizers.com modules to kind of build out a Mini Moog clone. And it sounds like this. So I've detuned each of these oscillators against each other to kind of give us, I think, like a fifth. I just did it by ear, not exactly sure of the specific tuning. Oscillator 3 is a triangle wave or a sine, depending on which end of this slider you go to. Each of the 2 top oscillators has sine, triangle, pulse, and saw, and you swap between these 2 sliders with this little knob here, back and forth. Whereas the bottom one has sine, triangle, and then with this knob, it turns us straight over to a pulse, which has pulse width modulation. So let's just turn these oscillators down and let's just have a quick look at what that sounds like. Really, really nice sounding. I really love the sound of the Dbiz modules. I think they just sound excellent. And let's go back to a triangle wave. And let's tune this second oscillator back to sort of neutral, and let's do the fine tune. And tune the bottom one to give us a sub oscillator. Let's adjust the filter. So yeah, really love the sound of the Dbiz modules, especially this Tros one. I think it just sounds great. Obviously, these filter modules and such are giving us some of that sound as well. But this isn't all I have to look at. I've built a little patch over here. Let's go have a look at it. And I'm just going to bring in each element one at a time. So at the top, I have this really slow, kind of beautiful cycling sequence. And I'm using this Euclidean sequencer here from Red Bull Technology, and the reason I'm using that is because it's a dual Euclidean sequencer. We have 2 channels, and the timing of that, or the triggers of that, I should say, is coming out into these 2 clock inputs of this sequencer from Dbiz called 4sec 4 sequencer. And basically what it is 2 sequences with 4 notes, one at the top, one at the bottom. You can mess with these switches to change it from just a 2-note sequence, 3-note sequence, or a 4-note sequence. I've just got them both on 4-note. They're both going into this scale CV quantizer set to Phrygian C. And it's just going into this Dbiz, what's it called? Suha oscillator. And it's basically 2 oscillators stacked. We don't get any control over the waveform, but we get 2 sub-oscillators per VCO. And again, I just think they sound really good. I've got them going into this dual envelope VCA from 4MS, and we're going into this Dbiz filter module, the dual filter. I have looked at the dual filter a bit before. let's bring these frequencies up a bit. Let's give us a bit of drive as well. I'm also using this Dbiz module here, which is just a really basic little summing mixer called Dr. Mix. It's got 6 inputs, but I'm just using 2 of them. I really like sort of like simple, good utility modules like this. Like I really like the Venom modules as well for that reason. So I really like this little sound. Let's mute it and have a look at the next one. This one's a little bit more complicated. Let's have a listen. And so what I've got going here is another Euclidean sequencer, this time from Sanguine Modules. This one's really good. I really love Euclidean sequencers, and this one's great. It's got a lot of interesting features. I won't go too much into them now. I really like this rotate feature, which you can see on the little screen here. And what I've got happening here is the Euclidean sequencer is going out into a sample and hold, and the sample and hold output is going into the rotate. So it's rotating itself, if that makes sense, which you can see on the scope here. And the outputs of this Sphinx Euclidean sequencer are going into this, well, actually, sorry, they're going into this 4 attack decay envelope generator from Dbiz, very cool module called Contorno, and they are triggering them, but they're also the clock, or it is also the clock for this sequencer here. This 3-track or 3-lane sequencer. Again, it's set to C Phrygian, and this one's called Big Smorf. And it's a cool little sequencer. I think it's really interesting. It naturally slides between notes. You can control the glide down here, but it's just set to 0 glide, but it still has glide. And I'm using the Tros again. This time I'm using it as 3 individual oscillators, which you do by switching these dip switches here, which if you leave them if you do that, it basically just follows the top as the lead oscillator, and all of these ones follow that one. But I wanted them to be individual, so that's what's happening here. And they're all going into this little mixer again, Dr. Mix, and out into the stereo filter called K-Passa. And I just think it sounds awesome. I really like this kind of dreamy, beautiful kind of just bendy synth lines, you know, lots of delay. So let's move on to the next one though. I'll just mute that and unmute this last voice that we have here. And this time I'm using the DVCO from Dbiz. It's a dual VCO, and I'm using it again, 1 VCO per voice, I guess, or per like sequence of track. This is a cool oscillator. You have a wave knob which you can oscillate between. If we bring it all the way to the right, we get pulse waves. And if I use these LFOs, we can get pulse width modulation on both of them. And these ones don't have, they're not going into a filter at all. It's just the raw oscillator. Let's bring it back to the left with these wave knobs, so we're just on a sine wave. I do have a little bit of modulation happening on the frequency modulation 1 on both of the voices. Really subtle amount, like the tiniest amount. You can see those percentages there. It's like a decimal point. And that's just to give us some gentle detuning, courtesy of these LFOs. And I think that just adds a really nice quality to, it's very subtle, but it's there. And what I'm using to create this sequence is, again, I'm using this Sphinx Euclidean sequencer, and it's going into this sequencer here called Bene, again from Dbiz, and it's again set to C Phrygian. And I've got the two outputs of the Euclidean sequencer. I've got the gate output and I've got the accent output. And the accent is set to 1, whereas the gate is set to 5. You can see the accent as it bulges out here, and it is the accent is rotating thanks to this LFO, so it's always moving. And each of these gates basically clocks the X or the Y axis at different rates, and so you can see the light as it cycles through the sequence in a sort of semi-random way, but it's also somewhat predictable. And yeah, that's kind of it. And then down the bottom, I just have this really basic drum beat, which by itself is pretty naff. But let's unmute everything. Bring in this drum beat. Detune this synth again. I have to mute everything just so I can hear what I'm doing. And let's put this on PWM. Alright, and let's just bring all this back in. And that's kind of gonna do it for today. Definitely check out the Dbiz modules. I think that they are really underrated modules. They sound awesome. I think I'll leave it there, keep it short this week, and I'll see you next time. Definitely check out Dbiz. And I will leave a link to this patch, which you can download from Patch Storage, in the video description, along with links to these modules. Alright, catch you later.